Welcome, BOLDcast viewers, to yet another BOLDcast podcast discussion. This episode video thing, we will be discussing Code Geass R1, aka Season 1 of Code Geass, starring starring Johnny Young Bosch as Lelouch Lamperouge, aka the only voice he ever does. What did you think of the first season? Do you have anything that you want to say as we discuss the first season? Because I've obviously seen the show. I watched it beforehand. It's one of my favorite series ever. Just as some context, and this video is just like all of our videos that I assume have come out at this period of time.
We're filming this like months and months before this is coming out, like possibly up to 6 months before this is coming out.
I don't know how many of these we've done at the point of posting,
like
because
one.
we've yeah. I am hopeful that this is like the millionth that we've done, because we just recorded the Haikyuu monster discussion, and this probably won't be as long. I obviously don't know, but yeah, this is to us. This is kind of new. So, and we haven't even announced the show yet. That's the funny thing.
Yeah, that's why for other ones like the Haikyuu one, we it's like literally an inch in front of my face.
I know, it has to be.
Yours is like way farther away.
This far away.
Okay. I think, yeah, so the Haikyuu one that we did, we got questions from everyone, obviously, because we had already finished the series and people had seen our reactions and, you know, had things to ask us about. But for this, because, yeah, we've announced it once to, like, 5 people that were in an exclusive stream. So we hope that everyone watching this video enjoyed our reactions and discussions and stuff. It was kind of an interesting show because there's a lot to talk about, and a lot of mystery, and I think that's what's interesting and made it a little bit harder to discuss at some points with the two of us, because you've obviously seen it and know everything that happens up until the end. It's a little bit harder, unlike some other shows that we've watched that you've already seen, like Naruto, where you could participate a little bit more because they were like more contained
well, yeah,
parts,
there's just so much
just
more
like
going
simpler
on.
ideas.
Yeah, simpler ideas, and like if I stumble on something, you know, it's probably something you already guessed, or it's kind of obvious and they don't, you know. Yeah. But in this, it's a lot different because this is a very like suspenseful series. It's all about the suspense. It's all about the reveal of events, and it's not like it's super complicated necessarily, but it's much more mature for sure, and it deals with a lot of mature themes and stuff going on. It's all about racism and colonialism, and you know, how you deal with that as somebody of the ruling class, et cetera. How do you take responsibility for that, or do you not even care? You just want to look out for yourself. Collectivism versus individualism. There's a lot of that going on. This show has a lot to offer, and I'm really glad that you enjoyed the first season, and I'm also glad that we did double episodes. Hopefully, you guys enjoy that as well. We want to do that for more shows, especially ones that I've seen. Depending on the show, but definitely ones that I've seen. I think going forward, it's a good way to do it because, you know, there's 2 of us, and when the videos are going good, it's 50-50. It's a 50-50 exchange when like the discussions are when the channel's working as it is supposed to. Then we should each have roughly equal things to say. Sometimes one of us will have more than others. But in this case, yeah, obviously I couldn't contribute to every conversation. That's why we're having this conversation, and why we'll have another one at the end of R2 discussing the whole series. And we'll be watching, there's recap movies as well, which have like a lot of extended scenes and shit that I didn't even know about.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
There's you know what? Yeah. So there's a bunch of other content. There's a 6 or 7 episode OVA series, which I also watched, but it wasn't that good, but it still might be worth watching on Patreon or something like that. Anyway, the show has a lot to offer, and I'm really glad that you enjoyed it. What did you have a favorite arc going into the show? Is there a favorite thing about it? Like, you know, what's one thing that you really loved about it, if you don't want to say a favorite arc?
I feel like it's hard to pick a favorite arc because they were all so good, but they were also short. So they're like
each battle
they were all very equal in terms of like attention paid to them.
Yeah.
So there wasn't one that was like, oh, this was the main one, and it was like, you know, on another level than the other ones.
But like, would you say you liked the refrain bit a lot more than like other parts, or?
I think the refrain part was cool because it took it in a little bit of a different direction and explored some different things. But I feel like that could be said for almost all of the parts up until like the end, where it kind of, you know, built into something a little bit more, like and like with longer lasting consequences when things started getting big. Like in the beginning, when it was just like, oh, we're doing this thing, then we're doing this thing, and then we're doing this thing. But I will say one thing that I liked about the show was how I feel like, I don't know, it dealt with a lot of really horrible and sad and just like disgusting
serious
things that were going on, but it but it also included some light moments and funny moments with the student council and, you know, some of the characters and interactions and stuff, and then, you know, some mysterious stuff and supernatural type elements with C2 and everything. But I think what the show did well is that it really kind of like paced itself, and I don't know, like it melded it all together in a way that it didn't seem like the comedy was at odds with the serious stuff.
Right.
It didn't seem like it was making light of the events. And I also think it helped because it was showing just the difference in what was going on for like the, you know, the Britannians versus the Japanese people living in squalor and fighting for their lives in these crazy, you know, they're getting murdered by the thousands,
Scores, yeah.
but just because, you know, other people are doing stuff and they're in the way, or they're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And then there's these kids over at school just, you know, messing around with a cat or doing other things.
I like the lighthearted conversational style and everything, and it's something that I think the dub does especially well, and it's something that a lot of good dubs in this sort of style do well. Steins Gate takes a very similar approach, where, you know, there are a lot of like funny moments where like characters fall on each other, and then, or like Suzaku gets bitten by Arthur, and then he's just like Colin or Shirley. Shirley is like, does that hurt much? Greatly, or something like that. There's like little comedy bits like that of, you know, it's just snappy little dialogue, but it translates well. And I'm not sure if that's a consequence of the good dub necessarily. I think it's both the dub and the writing, that it's just like, I think it also might have to do with the show's pace, because the show's so fast paced. It doesn't have like long, multi-layered like jokes or criticisms, etc., unless it's making a broader point about the plot. Like it uses its dialogue really economously to like move forward the story, since Lelouch is obviously a big strategist and stuff like that. So I don't know, it's just the writing's good in that way. It knows when to make jokes, it knows what not to joke about. There's not really many points where I don't think there's any point where they like joke about racism or something like that. They never they never make light of it. The most that we'll see is like Lloyd, it's either Cornelia being dismissive about like the horrible shit she's doing or whatever, or whoever it is, or Detard taking it lightly and seeing it more as like a
spectacle, or
a spectacle, or seeing the game that's kind of being played, since he's kind of like viewing it from the outside. Or we'll hear Lloyd like make some kind of like quip about how like hypocritical Suzaku is for like doing this and thinking that, and et cetera, being a soldier, whereas he doesn't want to kill people, and joking about that, and contradictions and things like that. That's about the most comedy we get out of like the actual series. It mostly takes itself pretty seriously.
And I think with those as well, that kind of thing is not necessarily for the sake of the audience as more as it is for the characters, because obviously Lloyd and Detard are part of the Britannians, and like, yeah, you know what I mean, like they aren't like so invested in Britannia's goals, etc. Yeah.
You're saying, is that what you mean?
I guess what I'm saying, because we're talking about the show's writing and the comedy, and like how they don't make jokes out of stuff that shouldn't be really joked about. That even if some of the characters are making light of certain things, it's not necessarily the show making light of it in a way that that they're expecting the audience to like think that that's you know what I'm trying to say with that?
Yeah. It's not like they are the mouthpiece of the writers or the creators of the series, and they're like slipping in an edgy little dog whistle or something like that about like what they actually believe. Yeah, it's not like tactful use of like weird little signals like saying, oh, we're about imperialism or we're about colonialism, et cetera, et cetera. They're very clearly about freedom and seemingly pretty anti-colonialism as far as like what the creators must be thinking going into this and writing everything. But they do also they also don't take that lightly in the case of like they discuss both sides, and even if the Britannians are obviously in the wrong, they do make a point to say like, the economy is booming, et cetera, but it's all
but
for
at the cost of
they don't take anything lightly. They don't take anything lightly, and it usually comes down on like the Britannia's obviously the bad guy, and that's both a good thing and a bad thing. I think.
I do think the fact that Britannia is so obviously the bad guy actually opens it up a lot for characters like Cornelia to be like so likable in a weird way, because she's obviously in the wrong. She's obviously doing horrible shit, and that's a given. They don't need to prove that.
Yeah.
So they can instead like explore her doing stuff like that in an interesting way,
right?
Like with her dedication and her strategy and stuff that makes it engaging to watch. Because if every one of the Britannians was like the Emperor dude who's just like evil laughing from his fucking weird pillars,
Seas World or whatever it is,
every place, like that, that wouldn't be entertaining if they were all just literal super villains.
And it also would completely ruin the entire point of establishing them. Like if we didn't have Millie, for example, who's like marrying Lloyd, and she's like her family's a former noble, and she is, she has some pull in her area. She's affluent, and she has money, and she has access to shit. She could basically do whatever she wants. But she still is welcoming of Suzaku. She still is running the student council in a way that's very inclusive. It's just they take it from many angles. But do you have a favorite character? Is there a character that you came down on that you like really liked or enjoyed? Sorry, go on. I wanted to go to another question, but I forgot. Go ahead. What's your favorite?
Well, I really liked Yuffie up until... Well, I mean, I still like her because that wasn't her.
Right.
But it was a very tragic end for her. And I think that's why because she's such a likable character. Like, how could you not really like her?
Yeah, that's the point.
It's the whole point of it, but it's still so sad because she literally became the exact opposite of what she was.
We can get into that right now if you want, or we could save that for later. That's like the main. That's kind of the main topic of the whole season 1 discussion.
I know. I was just saying because you asked my favorite character, but
you would say it's Yuffie. You would say
I would
not Colin or.
I would say like I really liked Yuffie, but I feel like the discussion about her character is more like is bigger than just her as a person. So I really liked, what was even that guy's name?
What guy?
The guy with the headphones that was like in love with C2. What was his name?
Mao.
Oh, Mao. I really liked him.
Yeah, he's funny.
He's very he really shook up the show. I feel like he came in at like the right moment, was like sneaking around so you didn't know what he was all about. He seemed like when you saw him that when we met up with him, it was going to be serious trouble, and he was like going to be a serious guy that was like coming to mess shit, and he was in a way, but just his personality and his goals and like what he was actually trying to do there was so different.
Yeah.
Because it's like when you see him like going around, you think like, oh, maybe he knows about the Geass, maybe he's trying to stop Lelouch, or maybe he's trying to, it seemed like he had some kind of bigger plan other than just he wants to be with C2.
Right.
And is, tracking her. Like, it seemed like it was more crazy, and then you find out, and then he just gets crazier and crazier and is, like, reading people's minds and taking people hostage and, like, all the stuff with Shirley and everything. I really liked the way his character kind of played out.
It's also interesting because when I watched it for the first time, I thought Mao, his 3-episode arc there was, like, a filler arc.
Really?
To me, it feels like a filler arc because before you get to the Yuffie stuff, where it's like you realize the whole point of Mao, as Lelouch says, is that it was set up for Lelouch's Geass to go rogue and like do whatever the fuck it wants and never turn off. So, once that happens, it's like, oh shit, that's because he even says, he's like, I become like Mao. But when it's happening, he seems weird and out of place and like a complete detractor. It's like Black Knights, and now we're wheeling and dealing. We're like busting drug dealers, and we're like strengthening the people, and we're fighting for justice, and we're moving, and we're fighting Cornelia. And then there's this fucking guy, and it's like it feels kind of out of nowhere, and he's like, oh, he has a Geass too, and his whole design also looks very different.
Yeah.
Even as crazy as some of the designs are, in terms of like garishness and stuff like that, the style and wardrobe of a lot of the characters is very reminiscent of like a JoJo style. Mm-hmm. More in R2, but in R1 as well. So like it's not like there isn't crazy character designs, but the way he has like the white hair and the double Geass and the headphones and the weird colors and the slouched kind of craned over neck, this spiky hair, he seems more like an anime character.
Yeah.
And he seems like when you see him, like he's the way he gets kind of folded into the scenes before his arc actually happens, seeing him like walking around or like looking around, he just seems kind of out of place, like he was just kind of inserted in there.
Yeah.
To like fill this time to set up. But what's great about it is, no, his arc is like extremely important to C2's character, getting to know her more, to Lelouch and Suzaku's relationship, and most importantly, the Geass.
Yeah, and also
strain.
with Shirley as well. Like
and with Shirley, yeah, because with her memories has lasting implications for the first season into the second season. So like, the fact that she knows who Lelouch is, and that's like a big deal.
And it was also a huge thing for Lelouch, who's like, running the Black Knights and like flying around and doing all this crazy shit, has world domination plans. He's not thinking about how much he's thinking about his sister, obviously, and Suzaku and everyone, but he didn't really think about how much someone like Shirley, who's just always there and always supporting him and always like making his day better in like ways that he didn't notice, like, oh hey Lulu, and like messing around, and just a kind of a sense of normal. I feel like that kind of took that away from him, because now every day when he's at school, he's just thinking about that it's not the same.
Yeah.
And even his like the normal part of his life is completely ruined forever.
And that's the thing. So this series gets compared a lot to Death Note because of the way that people perceive Lelouch. And I think that I can understand it, but I don't agree with it. And I think that the idea that they're like kind of parallels, or like, it just doesn't make sense. They're not the same character.
I think they're not the same. I think I really think that like there are ways in which it's the same, just like the very anime like plan, like, oh, and then I'll do this, and then like, making a very elaborate plan, and like the Cornelia like getting
the strategist, like
getting so mad and taking it so personally when something just happens not according to the plan, and then recalculating stuff like that. I feel like that
I can understand the connection,
but overall the theme, and also the way that he has this power that he's then using to make change in the world. Like, I feel like it's similar in a lot of ways, but different in even more ways.
Because he's like, and I think Light isn't affected by anything he does emotionally. He doesn't care.
That's the other thing. He originally goes on like, oh, I'm going to make the world a better place. I'm gonna get rid of the criminals, and then just gets on
5 days in, he's like laughing at the book.
He's having a huge power trip and like you know just goes completely.
He's
out
filling
of control.
pages with like serial killers and pedophiles and stuff. Like he and you know whatever. Like if you have like a sense of justice like that and you think that that's good, this isn't a discussion about Death Note, but like if even in episode 1 is like they make no bones about how Light is obviously taking this a little bit, he's enjoying this a bit too much for someone that wants to actually, you know,
help
make
people.
the world better. And like Lelouch doesn't enjoy killing the Japanese Liberation Front and abandoning people. He doesn't enjoy that. He doesn't like, I mean, but he will. He will if that's what it takes.
I think that's the thing as well is Lelouch.
He beats himself up about Clovis through the whole season.
Yeah, I think the thing is that Lelouch in the heat of the moment can get kind of manic and out of control, but that it takes its toll on him eventually. And he does, like, the fact that with Yuffie, he very clearly has a conscience, clearly has people that he cares about. It's not just his sister and no one else. There's so many conflicting things, like with Colin and
because it's not just one person.
And he does care about the people close to him. He cares about other people as well. But he has like varying degrees, and depending on what the situation is and who's involved, he can separate himself more or less. Like,
he's very selective. He's very selective about who he cares about. But like in comparison to Light, for example, he doesn't like Light. He hesitates when thinking about how he has to kill his sister at one point when he considers it. But he wouldn't hesitate in the moment. He does he does a lot of stuff that's like way that's either just as bad or worse, and it's lost on him the impact that he's having. Whereas Lelouch, yeah, you're right. In the moment, he might he might bottle it up, but it's very apparent that like it's not just one person. He's not just Nonnally he's protecting. It's not just the student council. He cares about people. Maybe he doesn't really care that much about the Black Knights on a personal level necessarily, as we learned at the end of season 1.
Yeah,
but that was also
in the heat of the moment when other things
Nonnally
was happening.
Nonnally
was taken. Yeah, exactly. There was something of higher importance. If perhaps
in a battle,
he didn't have that extra stress of Nonnally, if there's like a priority tier, it's like Nonnally, Suzaku, student council, Black Knights, like you know what I mean? Like I
don't think he ranks it like that.
I'm saying like when something is coming up, like not if anything else is happening.
He has priorities.
Yeah, he has priorities.
Right.
And I don't know that he specifically ranks it like that, but depending on the situation,
Yes. What do you think about the fan service? Going back to a lighter topic.
Oh,
the fan service is pretty rampant. It's kind of everywhere. I know that Blind Wave, they were doing a tier list of like all the shows that they've reacted to, and I tuned in a little bit and I went to like the shows that I had watched them react to and liked, and they said that. I think a number of them said, most of them agreed that like the fan service in Geass like significantly hampered their enjoyment of the series. I don't agree. I don't think that. I think it's maybe to do with the art style. I think that the way the bodies are drawn is more artful. It's definitely like meant to be titillating. It's definitely fan service for sure. Like when Colin's in the shower or when Valletta wakes up in Ogi's room. What do you think about it?
I think I don't mind it as much as I would in other shows. I think that mainly has to do with the pacing, as well as I feel like it's not dwelled on for too long. Like there's a lot of it, but I feel like certain instances of it do last for a little bit longer. And it's it's a little bit unnecessary at sometimes, but also like when was a show made? Like a while
2007.
2007. Yeah, it's a little bit older. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like to me it didn't detract too much, but it was kind of unnecessary, especially for Colin. And I kind of hated that it was always Colin.
It was mostly Colin.
I really like Colin. I should have said that when we were talking about like some of my favorite characters. I really, really like her. And I did feel like it was a little bit much. But I feel like her character was strong enough that it didn't seem like she was only there for fan service.
Right.
If you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, she definitely is one of the stronger characters, I think, in the whole show.
I think if Colin's character was weaker, it would have bothered me a lot more.
Yes. If she was just straight up Sakura.
Every instant. Well, I mean, Sakura, it's not like Sakura is having a naked shower scene every 2 seconds.
But she did have a lot of fan service in part 1, weirdly, if you look back.
But, like, yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I think that if she was there for fan service only, it would have, every time I would have seen it, I would have been like, come on.
They develop her a lot.
And I think that they can get away with it, for me personally, because of that. Because her character is really strong, because she does so much, and we really get to see a lot of her inner conflict and reasons why she's doing it, and her brother, and you know, when she, I don't know, I feel like she's a strong enough character that I can kind of ignore it a little bit just for my own sake of enjoying the show.
Yeah.
I just tried not to dwell on it too much, I guess.
Fair enough. What did you think of female characters in general in the show? Like, how do you think in comparison to other shows you've watched, or like what you were expecting? Like, what do you think of how the show treats the female cast?
I feel like it's kind of an interesting mix, because you have a lot of the girls, like, in the student council, and not only even C2 to an extent before we really got to know her, I found kind of boring. Just very, like, I like talking in a high-pitched voice, being kind of, like, C2 just kind of weird and aloof for, like, no reason, but, like, hanging around. They all just seemed very, like,
Who?
Like
just C2 or C2, every female
character? The student council girl, like Shirley, like everyone just kind of seemed very.
But that was the entire point of the student council. That's what. But I'm saying, what do you mean? What are you saying about this?
I'm saying at first I wasn't sure about it, and then as we went on and we saw the broader scope so then we have the student council girls. We get a little bit more into their backstories. We learn about them. We learn more about C2. We get characters like Cornelia, like Yuffie, but like we just eventually see a whole broader range, and then I like it more because not all of them were the same. And they had a good mix. I think with Colin, we got a lot into her as well. So I think overall they did a pretty good job. And even like Nina as well. Like, I feel like we got a lot of different personalities, and you know, dived into characters that you wouldn't even really expect. I don't know.
Who's your favorite female character?
Probably Colin. I think I really like.
Not
Colin.
Cornelia.
I do like Cornelia, and I also like Yuffie, but I think Colin's my favorite.
Nice.
I also did like Nina as well, because she was kind of a complicated character and had a lot of, like, was just kind of unexpected. Like, when you first saw her, you wouldn't have expected for her
to see her masturbating on the corner of a table.
Well, yeah, okay, other than that part, but
what do you mean other than that part? I think, like, what other show do you see something like that? Like, that's deranged. It's crazy. Yeah. It's like she's in the student council room and she, like, takes a second to, like, rub up against the corner of a table. You don't see that in anime. Like, actual, like, it's uncommon for a series, like, for an anime series. Like, it teases sexuality a lot, like anime does. But rarely do you see actual sexual release in a show. And I think that's kind of downplayed because people get weirded out by the way that is, because it's all dark. She's all silent. It's like it's kind of in the middle of everything, and it feels kind of out of place. But I thought about this, and I'm like, it's a really daring inclusion, because it says the fact that she does it. Like, if it was Game of Thrones, we wouldn't have bat a fucking eye about it. But because it's animated, we're all of a sudden weirded out. I enjoy it because it says a lot about her character, and it goes further to establishing the character than like any other anime I've seen. I don't like. I mean, like, there's obviously sexual violence that happens a lot in anime, but there's not, like, self-pleasure, and a lot, like, overt, this is happening, it's not implied, it's like this happens on screen, and she's walked in on by Nonali, who can't see. But yeah, so like I think that's important, and it made me also think, when I was thinking about this, the show in general, and I think it goes back to the character designs, has a very strong through line of femininity in it. And it's with the writing of the female characters. I don't know if one of the female writers was, or if one of the writers was female. I don't know anything really about the staff, but I think that's a common thing that the more I think about it, the more I kind of see, because there isn't a lot of like, the cast in the show is big, and a lot of the best characters are female characters, and it's not like an SJW like, oh, representation, blah blah blah. It's that there's a place for everybody here, and they fulfill their different roles, and it's not overt to like make a point, inclusivity or something like that. It's just that they explore different characters in different ways, and it's not something you normally see. Even Nonali has a sexual side to her, and that's explored. It's the way that she seems to have like a similar kind of crush on Lelouch. It's weird. I'm not saying it's not weird, but like, there was implied, like there was a scene where it was implied that like she got her period or something like that, and she was being moody, and she had a fever that morning and stuff like that. It's like subtle, and it's not shying away from it, or like oblivious to it, because like in a lot of shows it's like, oh, we have strong female characters, but they aren't like overtly feminine characters. You know what I'm saying? Like. It has, I think, like I said, like I was gonna say before, it has a lot to do with the character designs, which are done by Studio Clamp, which is an all-female manga studio that's famous for like that style of design. So like it's built into the look of the characters that it looks like that, and the theatrics. Obviously, Lelouch is very theatrical and very cinematic in his expressions and stuff like that. Very theatrical, like a stage play. It feels very gay or feminine, and there's like that sort of flair to it, and it's I think about it a lot. I think about that scene with Nina a lot because it's so weird, and I think about it a lot. I think about this every day. I think about it every night before I go to sleep. I think people take it the wrong way, and I think that I feel like people write off that scene as creepy and weird and like out of place, and it makes them feel uncomfortable. And I think that's the point. But it's also like, if you really think about it and and think about the rest of the series, there's that like natural femininity that exists in the series. There's a lot of matriarchal figures. There's a lot of just a strong like feminine presence kind of in the whole thing, and it's not ashamed of like showing off the female body, obviously, with all the curves and everything, and the very slender figures. It's kind of ridiculous, like how all of the female bodies look in the show. But it's like, I think it's good. I think it's cool and interesting, and I think it adds a lot more than a lot of people have maybe thought about or considered. You see what I'm saying? Yeah,
and I do think as well, like gonna like loop back around to the fan service thing. I think that it does come off as a little bit, like not necessarily classier, but a little bit. I think the character designs and like the like length of limbs and just the the very long vertical lines of everything just make it a little bit more artful.
Yes.
As well. Like it makes it like similar to how in JoJo with like the poses and the muscles.
Yeah, exactly.
It's sort of the soft version of that. Like everything is very
slender,
soft, and
I'm thinking of the word. It's like not articulate, but like slender, or I can't think of the word. Like, yeah, just an elegant. Everything's very elegant.
Everyone has like very shoulders. Like everyone's looking very regal, and I think that does play a part in just because they don't really look like real people at all. In the same way that in JoJo, they like real people don't really look like that.
Yeah,
it kind of I don't know. Just like it's a little bit different.
Because if you think about, like, I think about another show with a lot of fan services, like High School DxD or High School of the Dead or something like that, with like also characters with like crazy proportions and like literally built for fan service. Like it doesn't have the same like awareness of the character in the way the characters are drawn and move and stuff like that. And like I don't know. We could move on, I guess, but it's just it's something that I've thought about that I haven't heard anybody talk about. So I think it's really interesting that like I said, that thread of like femininity.
I did also want to talk about that because I went back around, but I do think that it is a good example of writing a show that is, I think, mostly is like a shonen, like is, you know, has a guy main. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe that's not the right classification.
I wouldn't say a shonen,
but like it has a guy main character. It's kind of edgy in a lot of ways. It's, but it has such a nice balance, and it doesn't. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't feel forced for the girl characters to be badass. They're just true to their character, and I think that that's what shows like Naruto and a lot of other shows do. They're like, oh, well, we need some girls around, so we'll do this, but like, I don't know how to write girls. I'll just have them do nothing, or I'll make them do this one thing that's really forced and kind of awkward, and then, you know, it just feels very natural a lot of the time that they're around, so much so that until you kind of brought it up, I didn't really even think about it, because it just seemed like, oh, this is all the characters. It doesn't really
they could
matter.
have just made Cornelia Schneisel. Like they could have just put Schneisel there, or another Clovis or whatever. Like they didn't have to make it Cornelia. And I think the fact
that it was it was like a sisterly bond between Cornelia and Yuffie as well, because with Yuffie, Cornelia was kind of showing a more like a sisterly or more maternal side to her, and a softness.
It wouldn't be the same if it was a guy.
It wouldn't be the same. And I think that it was nice to explore that, because so often in anime we see like brotherhood.
Yes.
We see like a Naruto Sasuke, like he's my brother, he's my best friend. Like we see that so much in almost everything, or father son, or like it's very rare to see a super strong sisterly bond that it just is, and they still had problems and they didn't agree with each other, but they, at the end of the day, they loved each other and were family and cared about each other. And I think that was really interesting and really helped both of their characters, because Yuffie, who hated violence and didn't want wars, still loved her sister, whose job it was to like trample the entire world beneath her feet.
Yeah.
And Cornelia, who was trampling the entire world, still had a soft spot for her sister and wanted her sister to be happy.
Above anything. Would abandon her pride. Would abandon the mission if anything was to happen to Yuffie.
And she wasn't happy when Schneisel was coming in and letting Yuffie do, you know, all this crazy stuff, but she wasn't going to punish her, or like she was going to be salty about it and a little bit of a bitch to her, but she didn't let that stop her from loving her and caring about her. The same as in real life. If someone that you love does something that you don't like, it's not gonna, depending on the severity, of course.
But the important part is like the quintessentially like feminine thing about that. It's not, like you said, it's not often that you see that kind of a bond. It's more often that you see brothers or something like that. So it's unique. It's different. It's not the same as every other show.
And I do also like with Cornelia herself that she is very feminine looking. Like she dresses very feminine, even though she's this badass, like fighting and flying around. She still has hot pink hair, and like I
think it's just her natural hair.
I know, but it is, girly looking. She
looks, in design wise,
as a design. And although she's not wearing dresses, she has like this, like a very elaborate, like I don't know, like coat thing with the things sticking out from. It's just a very
like the mantle or whatever.
Like the design of her is very nice. She still looks harsh and also feminine at the same time, which is interesting and just kind of refreshing, I feel like.
True. So, Bloodstained Yuffie is the name of the episode 22, where where she guns down a stadium full of people because Lelouch fucked up. And one thing First of all, what's your opinion about this? What was your opinion about that twist? What did you think of that? How did you take that? I noticed you you reacted very angrily, and then off camera, I told you that like it's okay to feel sad about it, and that's okay. You're allowed to feel sad that like your favorite character just got killed. You don't have to be like all pissed off. You know, you could just be yourself on camera. It's okay. I had to remind you of that because you were getting a little bit worked up, and I was afraid that you were like, you were protecting. You're keeping your emotions bottled up and misrepresenting yourself via anger, because I know that you do that. And but you were very hurt by that.
Yeah.
You were affected by this twist, and you really liked Yuffie. Like you said, she was your favorite character.
I think, I don't know, I feel like, although it is, like, it obviously makes the story more interesting and more engaging and, like, just, like, more to it and does a lot for a lot of the characters.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's such a betrayal, because you just want them to have a happy ending. You're just like...
They just had the whole, like, festival episode right before that as well.
It just seems like, man... it could really work out. And then it's like, okay, after this, there's no hope of doing it in a nice way.
Yeah.
It's just...
now we're really embarking down the path of blood.
And it's really shocking, of course, because it's meant to be, but it's just so horrid. Mm-hmm. Like, it's and such a waste.
Did you, from a narrative perspective, or like from the show is cool, did you enjoy the twist, or did you... What did you think? Did you enjoy, like...
I think it was a good...
Because most people agree that it was exceedingly convenient and a little bit put on that, like, the one time that the Geass does not work properly is the time where he just happens to be looking her in the eye and says, "Kill the Japanese."
Yeah.
So a lot of people, that's like, for a lot of people, it ruins the whole show. For a lot of people, they're
Really?
like, that's super convenient. That's bullshit. I argue that there were multiple things foreshadowing it, especially the whole Mao arc. That's the whole purpose of it.
I think, although it is convenient, and I do think that, and I do think it's kind of... I don't think it's the only thing in the show that is convenient, or the only, like, you know, people... like Lelouch not being found out by anyone, Lelouch not finding out about Suzaku. Like there's so many things that are just chance.
Yeah.
And I do think as well that I like it in the sense that it has consequences for Lelouch, because he's just been using this power unchecked on anybody, even though he knew the consequences. He didn't stop, and it's almost like he took on this power and then wasn't careful with it and it's like karma on him, because only he like at this point, only he knows that he did that, and he betrayed the entire world and ruined his own plans and his own cause and killed someone that he cared about deeply and hurt other people that he cared about. It's, I feel like it really puts a lot more pressure onto him, and I think probably going into season 2, and I also think that if he hadn't done that, but like I don't know, it really changes everything. It's the real. There's no going back after this.
Yes.
But at the same time, then after that, freaking Lelouch takes off and abandons everyone to die. Because Nonnally gets kidnapped and stuff like that. So I don't know. I feel like it is interesting. I do understand how it can ruin it for some people, but I also think, similar to how I didn't mind the fan service as much as other people, I think with this show specifically, I was just trying to enjoy it, like, for what it was, and not be too like, still be critical, but not let something ruin it for me, even if I didn't like, obviously I don't like that happened. I hate it. I wish that it didn't happen, and it was unnecessarily and didn't need to happen.
I think that it's really dramatic, but yeah, like you said, and I think a lot of people sort of see what happened to Yuffie, and then if they're really taken aback by it and sort of pulled out of it, it kind of sours them on the rest of the show, and then they go back and then they point out all the things that are really convenient, like you said. Like, I'll point out one right now. In the intro of episode 1, when we're like seeing Japan being taken over and stuff, there's like jets in the OP. There's jets. There's jet fighters and shit. Where are those in all of these battles where like you could just drop a bomb on the enemy and they're done for? Like, why are we only using nightmares if apparently there are
that are
jets?
like super easy to fall apart, and then like
or planes?
Yeah.
Like, there apparently there's no fucking planes anywhere. I get that it's Japan. It's set in Japan where it's all trains, and I get that it's their own country, so they don't want to necessarily devastate it. But it also doesn't make sense considering all the shit that they do to their populace. There's a million things to be critical of and that are overly convenient. The show is meant to be overly dramatic.
Yeah,
it's the personality
of the show. I think
show.
The show is extremely dramatic, and it's made to explore different ideas. So things are going to happen for the sake of further exploring those things.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's like, okay, there's a chance that this is, and you can kind of play out how that's going to go. And so then you do the opposite thing and go down the path of further destruction and further chaos and explore where that goes. And how does Lelouch deal with this? How does he come back from this? He abandons it. And what's all this stuff with C2 and Geass and like, because that's part of the story as well. That's huge and hasn't really been gotten into that much.
Yeah.
So.
And oh yeah, how convenient is it that the four of the most important people in the show end up on the island together, like randomly?
Exactly.
Like, how did that happen? How the fuck did that even happen?
Well, actually, I'm pretty sure C2 was whoever she was talking to was like, "Oh, you put them all on. You put Colin there too, didn't you, or whatever?" She said something like that. So it seems like there's some sort of forces creating some of these conveniences, perhaps.
Perhaps.
And maybe even. I mean, I don't know, but maybe even to the extent of the Lelouch's Geass
activating
at that time.
Maybe it's a threads of fate intertwined at that moment or something.
And the Emperor dude who's watching Lelouch and everything somehow seemed to be quite pleased about that. So I'm not sure. But yeah, I think the entire show is convenient. Literally every single thing in that show is convenient. So to say that that's where you draw the line. That's where you draw the line is to me, I don't draw the line there. That's fair.
To me, I understand it, and I do think that it's a bit much. I do like what it does for the story. I do like how tragic it is, and it with everything, you know, I think there was enough build up. It's just a little bit too much that he just happened to look her in the eye the second he says that thing. Like that's where a lot of people draw the line, and then it happened right then. It didn't happen 10 minutes earlier. It didn't happen, you know, whenever. Yeah. That's where people draw the line. And for me, I dropped it when I was rating everything, I dropped it from a 10 to a 9. I might change that depending on how this rewatch goes. If I really finish the whole series and I'm like, you know what? That wasn't as bad as I thought. Because now I'm obviously a lot more educated on like story structure and theming and stuff like that. I'm a lot more perceptive than I was, 6 years ago when I watched this for the first time. So, I depending on how this goes, I might bump it back up to a 10 or leave it at a 9. But yeah, I'm noticing a lot more things on this rewatch that I think make up for it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, is there anything else you want to say about the bloodstained Yuffie situation? Anything else about like how it affected characters, or what do you think about Suzaku now that he's on the path, now that he's going down the path of blood and is killing people on the battlefield and will become a murderer in the sky? So don't tell everyone not to look in the sky. Where do you think he will go with this? If he's provided he survives the finale.
That's the thing, is honestly I don't know. I don't know where the story's headed from here, because it seems like we're gonna get a lot more into Geass and C2, and like we're at like that weird temple looking place, and not only has been kidnapped by V2. Yeah, so I'm not sure what this is gonna do to him, given that some new information might be soon discovered that might I don't know, be so grand or so weird that it makes what's going on in that moment, like the fight between them and everything, kind of irrelevant. You know what I mean? Like if you get access to some crazy shit all of a sudden, then you're like, oh, that's so shocking.
What crazy shit are you talking about?
Like, okay, I'm saying, like, if they discover some sort of secrets about, like, Geass and the C2 and V2 and...
Do you think that they will?
I think that they will. I think they're in that weird area, the temple-looking thing. And I think that something could get unlocked there. They're going after Nonali, who's been taken to, somewhere else. I think that something big could happen in regards to that. That then they would have to, like, that kind of would snap them out of the situation, and then they would have to kind of reassess taking how they were before, how they were after Yuffie, and then how they were after this, like, new stuff. Because Suzaku does he know about Geass? Oh yeah, he got told by Cornelia.
By V2.
Suzaku?
V2 told Suzaku after Yuffie died about Geass.
Oh.
V2 came and he's like, Geass, or whatever. And he's like, Geass? Yes, the power to control people is what Lelouch has and is what he used on euphemia. Blah blah blah. Here's like the last question that I thought of before this. So we don't know what happens after they shot each other or whatever the fuck is going on. That went black when they pointed the guns at each other. Provided, whether you think what is going to happen, who survives, regardless of all that shit, regardless of who survives, who dies there, whether they all make it out or they all die and then we get like a flashback or something. At this point in the conflict, the Black Knights have been crippled. Lelouch is gone. He left his group. He killed his sister on accident. He sabotaged the JLF. He inadvertently got thousands of Japanese people killed, civilians. He's not doing too great.
No.
Suzaku, a company man working the system, hoping for a better future, is now a Knight of Honor of Britannia, knighted by Cornelia, which I think is better than the rank he had before. I think that him as Yuffie's knight is not as good as Knight of Honor, which is the same rank that Lelouch's mom had, Knight of Honor of Britannia. They might be the same. It might be a translation thing. Maybe they didn't say Knight of Honor before. They just said Knight. He had the rank of Major. It seems like it was an upgrade. Regardless, he is moving up in the system. And he has now ditched this, like... Suzaku, by the end of season 1, has ditched this whole thing of, I'm not going to kill anybody, this or that. But he seemingly still does believe in his own sense of justice. He still does think that the Black Knights are wrong. At the very least, he dislikes them for what happened to Yuffie. At this point in time, after everything Lelouch has done, which side would you choose? And, may I remind you, after Schneisel and later Cornelia agreed to the Special Administrated Zone of Japan. Which side, and with Suzaku on that side, with Lelouch still, say he goes on to fight more.
Yeah.
Which side would you choose? Which side would you follow at this point in time? Versus like the beginning, or is it the same? You know, what do you think of that?
Here's the thing. I think at the very start of the show, Lelouch is maybe a little bit more valid because at that point, when Suzaku was first starting out, it was Clovis in charge and no other people above him that would even give him the chance to be in a position to evoke that kind of change. So Lelouch was kind of seeing that of like, okay, the guy in power is a jackass. He's literally never going to do anything ever other than be a dick. I
think Lelouch is more concerned with getting revenge and
killing
the royal family than change.
That's true. Okay. Well, anyway, for the But regardless, I think at that point, well, I guess at that point I wouldn't really be on Lelouch's side because he was just trying to get
You wouldn't
revenge.
be on. You would be on Britannia's side, or would you do nothing?
But Lelouch himself at that point was going for his own things after he teamed up with as he joined.
Is he now not?
No, I'm saying.
Was he ever not?
I guess he was. He always was, but somewhere in the middle, when he was starting the Black Knights, he was making a change and influenced and controlling a bunch of people who wanted to free Japan.
Right.
And that was their interest. So of course he would help them reach that goal, while also at the same time reaching his goal of getting revenge against Britannia, because they were kind of the same. And would result in like a win-win scenario. But then the moment that he abandoned everyone, I don't think now I don't think I would be on his side at this point, because
would you be on his side if you were one of his followers and knew that he bombed the JLF and killed their general?
Probably not.
So well, I'm saying what it does. I'm saying like, what's different about Lelouch at the start versus Lelouch now?
I don't really know where I was going. I guess I would say, given like as a person who knows all the like things that other people in the world might not know, I think that Suzaku was for most of the show kind of doing the right thing, because if Lelouch didn't have magical powers that then screwed everything over, everything would have kind of worked out. Yuffie had her whole zone, everything was going on. Schneisel was coming in, and
provided he could even get that far without the Geass, which he could not. He used the reason that he got to that point was because he had the Geass. He wouldn't have been able to even get in the room with euphemia if he didn't have the Geass. Mm-hmm. What are you saying about this? What side are you on?
Well, I guess I would say I'm on
Britannia's side.
I get.
What side do you think is better? More moral or by your own standards? I want to get your opinion.
I guess the thing is, I think that Suzaku has a better idea, but only because he's not just saying that he wants to make change. He is taking every action possible to move up and really try to make that. He's not just like, oh, well, I'm going to work from the inside, but he's just, you know what I mean? Like, because some people would be like, oh, well, I'm going to do this, but aren't actually putting their all towards that. That's always been his number one priority. Lelouch's number one priority is get revenge, which is, if you just look at their priorities on a baseline, Lelouch, revenge. Suzaku, a better life for Japanese people. I feel like just at that point, it almost, I mean, the way they're going about it does matter, but the goal is completely different.
Right.
Because Lelouch isn't trying to make it better for anyone other than himself and his sister getting revenge for their mom. They're not, Suzaku's not trying to get revenge. He just wants it to be better.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a specific target in mind. He just wants all of his people to have a better life and live in peace.
And he also is like, again, overcompensating because he killed his dad.
Yeah.
And feels responsible for the state of Japan currently. Mm-hmm. So that's why he's fighting so hard, is because he feels bad for killing his dad.
Yeah.
Basically. So yeah, I just think the reason I'm pushing this so hard is because I just think it's really worth thinking about, because it can kind of go, you can kind of let it go past you and not really think about it, but it's an interesting thing that really when you actually confront the idea of like, which side would you fight for? It's not as easy as like a Nazi Germany versus, United States type thing. It's not that easy. It's like there's this colonial power taking over the world, fucking people over. Is it better to outright destroy it out of hatred, or is it better to work from within and try to change it for the better? I guess it all depends if there's a chance to change it from within, or if there's a better chance to destroy it from the outside.
Which is what I was trying to say when I was saying...
With Lelouch, the Black Knights being narrowed down.
What I was trying to say is Lelouch, when he had all the Black Knights, and it was really, they were he was working for them to get them to help him with his...
He was never working for them.
I meant...
He was using them.
Yes, but they were getting what he wanted because he was invested in building them up and moving along. But what I'm saying is now, because he doesn't have all those people, he's not going to care about trying to help them. He is now diverted towards his main goal of saving Nonnally / wrecking Britannia. But because he has betrayed the Japanese people, I don't think that they would even follow him at that point, which then would make him...
That's provided it got out that he left.
That's true.
Which, if everybody's dead, who's to say? Or, who knows what Britannia will say.
But if any of them survive, they would know that Lelouch just took off. And...
Are you sure they would know that?
Well, they were all like, where's Zero? Where did he go? Oh, he's going off there.
He said, when he left, he said, I have a more important matter to tend to. There's no way they would know what happened to him if he left and never came back. I don't want to talk too much more about this because it is beginning to talk about spoilers, so I don't want to do that. But I really want I'm sorry if I was pushing this a little bit too hard. I just want you I wanted to get across the real point of this, where it's that's what Suzaku was arguing about with Zero Lelouch before, is things gained through unsavory methods will never be worth it. That's always what he says, no matter what. And this is what he means, is because killing all of the Japanese people who are on your side, accidentally getting all the civilians killed, the JLF, all the people he sacrificed on his side without giving a shit, actively sabotaging his own side so that he can get a chance at getting at Cornelia. He's acting out of his own self-interest, and the intention matters. And it's not, you think it's so easy because the Black Knights are they're unified. They're they're freedom fighters working for a thing. But if their leader is working for his own, he's corrupt. He's working for his own method, his own intentions. He doesn't the Japanese people getting their freedom is incidental. It's it's a symbiotic relationship. But if they become at odds, like we saw at the end, what happens? He completely abandons them and they're left without a leader and they die. So is it really better, or is Suzaku really just the way that how I guess it's just the scales so subtly shift out of balance, and it's all the context and the reasoning behind it, the decision making completely flips. And it's just so interesting. And
I guess, okay, I think I'm now able to talk about better what I meant by at the beginning versus at the end. I think Suzaku at the beginning and up until Yuffie kind of came along, it seemed like there wasn't really a chance for him. And therefore it seemed okay, he can try that, but Lelouch is actually getting somewhere, and even though he's in it for himself, he is also helping other people, and they're getting a power-up that they didn't previously have, and even though he's, betraying them in some ways and, doing stuff, he is... This is the first hope that they've seen, since anything. None of the other resistance groups or terrorist groups or anything had ever gained any traction. They've just been beaten down immediately. So I think that's what makes it seem like, you know what? If Suzaku's been playing his game for however long and not really getting anywhere, everyone's still looking down on him, he doesn't have any authority or any power, no one seems like they're willing to listen to him. It seems like, maybe that's not going to work out. But then when Yuffie comes along and you kind of see more about her, then you're like, oh, there is someone who is literally royalty.
Yeah.
And she is receptive. Then it's you want to know what?
There's a chance. There's hope
that
in the
could
system.
Work. It's because it's the newer, younger generation is coming into power with different ideas of how the world should be.
Exactly.
And she is easily convinced to I mean, she doesn't even need to be convinced. She just rolls in there, sees Suzaku, and is like, "Hey."
Yeah, literally falls into his arms.
So it's I think like that's where he starts to gain power, because there is a hope, and I think Lelouch was so caught up in because he's in it for himself, not for Japan. He is thinking about it like, oh, well, there's still no hope in that, even though Euphemia is there. And Cornelia loves her sister and will do things to please her sister and let her do what she wants. And Schneisel seems to be, I don't fully know what his deal is, but he's relatively chill. Just let her do what she wanted. Mm-hmm. Was like, you know what, go ahead.
Yeah.
And she did. And Suzaku, because of his hard work, because he was put in that place.
He had faith in the system.
And he put his faith in the right person, Yuffie, who reciprocated that and rewarded him and was doing her best to use him as an example, not the way that Britannia previously was using honorary Britannians as an example, or previously
as like
as like, oh, they can be there, like with the whole picture contest of like, oh, well, it can be here, but it's not going to win. We're never going to say it's the best. We're never going to say it's equal to us, but we're going to pretend that it is. She was very willing to say, no, that it is equal. They are equal to us. You know, if we make it like that, we're in charge. Yeah. We can decide. And I think once she was introduced and started to stand up, and I think seeing Suzaku inspired her to take that leap and stand up to her sister. And, so he really was the driving force behind that change, and I think that that's important to recognize as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I think that that's where, and because when Lelouch comes in, when they were like, oh, we're gonna do this zone, and he's like, no, they can't do the zone. I'm gonna do it myself, but with killing everyone first. And it's like, well, hold on a minute. If you want a peaceful place in Japan,
it's not even worth considering. Like,
then what's the deal with it? Like, why?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't care. And he was so blinded by it that he didn't even think, oh, maybe this would be a great idea. And in the meantime, I can use my fucking magic eye to go after the people that I want to go after. Yeah. It didn't even occur to him to, settle down for a minute and think about alternate plans other than forcefully taking it over.
Well, yeah, and the common thing in all the things that you're talking about is like Yuffie brought hope to everybody. Mm-hmm. That was what she did. Is she was the hope in the system for all the Japanese people, the hope for the end of the rebellion because the rebels were even cool with her, or at least open to what she had to say.
Yeah.
So without her, where does that leave us for the future?
Yeah, I think it's very complicated because without her, they don't have someone who's outrightly on their side. However, with Lelouch, he's also not on their side.
So where are the Japanese people? They're just being abused by one side and used by the other.
Suzaku is now a Knight of Honor, and Cornelia put him in that place. And Cornelia may or may not die. Schneisel had originally funded Suzaku's project and allowed him to
rise through the ranks.
Yeah, so I think although not quite as much as with Yuffie, there's still
a chance there.
There's some uncertainty, and you can't quite tell how it's going to end up because even Cornelia, like everyone was shocked when Euphemia started killing all those guys.
Yes.
So, and
they weren't happy.
They weren't happy about it. Yeah. They were like, what the fuck? And I wonder if, like that.
But is it, so that's really interesting. They did not want that to happen. Also, what are is it even possible for the Japanese people at this point, after everybody saw that, to trust the Britannian government? Is it just going to stoke more rebellion? Because that's what happened, is they went around after that happened, collected all of the remnant factions of all the rebel factions and assimilated them and assaulted the Tokyo settlement.
Yeah.
So if that's like the last of everyone, they're all dead, is it more likely the Japanese people are going to pick up arms, do you think, or is it less likely?
It seems honestly less likely, but it also seems maybe more likely that Cornelia and Schneisel might be a little bit more chilled out. Like, if they're not going against Zero, if Euphemia just died, they've witnessed all this horrible, they're just, like, confused. I'm not sure how that will end up, and how, if they will try to do their best to avoid any type of uprisings in the future, but not by force, so they don't inspire violence back against them. If that was kind of the last straw of like, holy shit, maybe
they'll lead by Yuffie's example.
Yeah,
is the hope.
Is the hope. And the thing is, we don't know, but we do know that with the Lelouch, he doesn't care either way as long as he gets revenge.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's only one, unless there's more you want to say.
I guess that's mostly it, because we're going to have another discussion at the end of, after we finish the second season, in which anything that we missed here, and maybe we can wait till after everything's out for that one and get, like, questions and comments of the things that we maybe missed, because there's only so in-depth we can go when you know what happens next, and I don't.
Well, at the end of the series, you'll know what happens.
No, I meant, like, right now, for this one.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm excited to get to that because the second season, a lot of people like the first one more, but I think it is one complete story. It has a very good ending, like well-crafted ending. It's very solid as a whole thing. I don't think it dips in quality, so I think that you're going to enjoy what we have. There's still a lot more to get to. It's bigger and badder than ever, and we hope that you guys tune in for it on BOLDcast, the reaction channel you're viewing right now. And if you want to see more, leave a like and subscribe. You can check out Patreon. I'm not sure how many uncuts there will be, but it might be all of Season 2. It might be half of Season 2. I have no idea. You should go check out. It's linked in the description, patreon.com/BOLDcast. See how far ahead we are on Code Geass right now. And stay tuned for our community tab, because we'll post something in the near future about questions for the full series review, and we'll do another one of these further down the line. And we can get more in depth. It can be like the Haikyuu one. It'll be like extra long and extra beefy and crazy, and it'll be awesome. And we hope you guys enjoyed this one, and we hope you guys stick around. I'm Carson.
I'm Lindsay.